Hello, my name is Kirk Balzell. I wanted to create this video to showcase one of the main portfolio pieces for my application for SMU Guildhall, and specifically the level design track. So what we have here is the creation kit. It is the game engine that Bethesda uses to create their games, and I'm using it to create a mod for Skyrim. So I just wanted to talk for structure. I'll talk about kind of me learning the software and trying out different ideas before going into developing the main level that I've been working on, and then we'll take a look at it in the actual game, and then I will come back to the creation kit to look at the questing and scripting that I've been muddling through, and then take a look at that in game. Also, to just explain a little bit about the concept of this mod, part of it is inspired by an order of blood hunters and lycanthropes in the world of Critical Role in campaign 3 called a tribe called the Gorgynei. It's a collection of blood hunters who are were animals, essentially, like were-panthers and werewolves and bears and all that stuff. So I thought that was a really cool storyline that they're kind of talking through and working through. But more than that, it was inspired by a short, like 1-minute animation that came out in like 2012 called Dovahbear, where it's just like a random bear ends up being the Dragonborn. And I thought that's hilarious. So I just wanted to kind of turn Skyrim into a bear simulator where you can catch salmon and collect honey and terrorize bandits and all of that amazing stuff. Skyrim is a great game, and I think it would be better if you could play as a bear. So to start out here with the level design aspect, this was one of my first attempts, I guess, at just like making a base level for this group of lycanthropes. I wanted to create this den, kind of a place where they could have their own space and it's in nature, and they can kind of be shielded from the rest of the world. So I've gone back and forth quite a bit about if the world space here should be an interior or a separate world space. Most things, like all the dungeons and houses and all things like that, most things in Skyrim are either this Tamriel world space, which is just like the open world, or they're an interior, like a house or whatever. There are a few exceptions to that, like you can see, and I will talk about why I ended up going with a separate world space. You can see some of my tests here. So yeah, obviously didn't make it very far in this preliminary test, but switching over to the first attempt at a world space, the main difference here is that the game engine generates all this land that you can landscape. So just bring it up and down and shape it roughly this way, and texture and all that good stuff. So here, this was kind of where my ideas started. I liked this idea of some sleeping areas for the inhabitants, both human and in their animal forms, and also just a place in nature where they could escape from the world. So I tried to create a nice little scene with this pond, and I actually kind of took the approach of I carved it into the landscape instead of building the landscape up. So I worked on this for a few hours, and I definitely learned a lot, even just like these wood planks and how to actually make that look rotate on a ground that's not a flat surface and not level, and how do you make that look realistic, and also like function technically. But ultimately I decided to go in a little bit of a different direction. So I also tried going back to the interior, and I made this big chamber, and it just didn't feel right. The main thing that I've been working on as like level design is this. Let's go ahead and reload here. It's a lot more fleshed out than the previous test. Still a whole lot of work to do, but this is kind of a overview. The idea is that it's kind of tucked away inside a mountain, maybe not so much a hollow mountain, but maybe just like a secluded crack that not many people would know where to go unless you absolutely know where to look. So around here you see some of those same ideas. You have like a central gathering space for the inhabitants. You have these little coves for like hay and moss, as well as bedrolls for the humans. You have simple containers for food and ingredients, which is also interesting to think about because if you're animals, you probably wouldn't be eating. It would be weird to like eat other animals, I think. This right here is a visual glitch. Part of the fun of the creation kit is navigating the bugs. The developers who created like a bunch of really good tutorials on the wiki talk about this, of like there are some things left over from 2002 that no one really knows why they exist, but it would kind of break the engine to remove them at this point, so it's kind of navigating the architecture that's there. So this will make more sense in game, but one thing I really struggled with, and I'm still struggling with, is the scale, especially if I just like start just like loading up a blank space and I don't have these like NPCs. These NPCs are a really good indicator of scale. You can see that this fireplace is huge because it's actually made for giants, and I just kind of stole it. That's one of, I think, the main things I'm thinking about going forward with this is I feel like it might be too large. I want it to be a cool space, but I also want it to be realistic. There's a lot more to say, but I think it would be best if we just hop in and take a look at it in game. Alright, so I'm here at the entrance of Bloodborne Den. It's a cave entrance. I wanted to make this, I'm still adjusting this, but I wanted to make it a pretty tight entrance. The residents don't want just anyone wandering in. And as we walk in, you come in to get a big view of the space. So right away you see the issue with scale. So one idea is that this was kind of like the interior of a mountain, in which case I'll continue these up to create more of a closed off space. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to make this a world space and not an interior is to get weather and have some really cool lighting effects and weather. The Daedric quest for Hersine that's in like the vanilla game has some concepts kind of like this that are just like super effective and cool in my opinion. So I'll just take you around here. We'll talk about the NPCs a little bit at the end. This is supposed to be a little graveyard. We got some red lighting. Gonna try and work that in as much as I can. That's tasteful. This is the main area we looked at with some seating and just simple things, simple living. I wanted this to be, for the most part, a realistic space where these people who have been kind of abandoned by society and are kind of dangerous to society and to each other. I wanted a space where they could have their own refuge. This space over here is the most work in progress, I would say. You can see a lot of the vertices are pretty sharp, so want to smooth those out while making them still look natural. But there's a lot of ingredients and berries. Funnily enough, I think a lot of these predators would be vegetarian, because it would be weird to eat your friends. This area's pretty a little hard to traverse, but I wanted to show this little area mostly because I thought it would be really nice to include a little shrine to Kinnereth, who is the Adric god or deity, kind of the Earth Mother figure. More actually about the sky, but I'm making it about the earth and nature. I wanted to also include a lot of fun references to other games that I love. And one of those is actually in Morrowind. I remember you could always find like Daedric items in just like at the base of waterfalls. So I have some gauntlets here with some custom enchants. Hope to, I will hope to work in some cool loot for the player as well. So this is one of our main NPCs. He's a bear. His name is Brother Suerta, which is Atreus backwards, which I thought would be a fun nod to God of War Ragnarok. You can see he's struggling a little bit. And also if you engage in combat, he's very sleepy, which is very cute. But if you engage in combat, you can see that he's angry, he's aggressive, but he doesn't really attack you. That is, I believe, because I want them to be use like blood magic, or at least the Skyrim equivalent, and that's not the natural, quote-unquote, natural state of animals in this game. They are not usually spellcasters. They don't have those animations scripted, which I believe, from what I understand, that's tied to them actually being able to use those spells. So I have his class set to, I think, like a werewolf mage or something, but he doesn't, the coding is kind of like fizzling out, so he just kind of roars at you. Similar thing with, I have a wolf over here. I'm having more success with the human NPCs because they have animations for magic, but that's gonna take some time and troubleshooting. But I'm excited about the prospect of magic wielding bears. Yeah, I love the idea. Transitioning into quest design, I love player choice with lasting like stakes and consequences. So I would love to integrate maybe like a option throughout the questline where maybe the player can go to the companions and they can eliminate this whole faction of lycanthropes. I want there to be stakes, I think that's what gives stories meaning, and I want the player to be able to make their own choices. So let's go and dive into just a little bit. I know this video is getting pretty long already, but just a little bit of the under the hood of like scripting and dialogue and stuff. Alright, so we are back in the creation kit here, and we're gonna take a look under the hood at the quest. I've named this quest New Tracks. It's a side quest, and this is the one I've been working on, is really just the first stage, or the first quest in this, hopefully in what is a really fun and engaging questline. I really love games like The Witcher 3 and how there's so many subtle changes based on like NPCs interacting with the player based on the player's choices. So I want to include a lot of branches. I'm still very new to this, so this is the most basic level, but it's been fun to try and figure out. So actually a lot of questing in Skyrim, kind of the two parts of it are their indexes, their index system, So this is, each index number is like stage of the quest, and I have these all mapped out with like the dialogue and everything in a separate document, but in order to keep things moving. So this is like the first, 0 would be before the player accepts the quests or talks to the NPC or whatever, and quest 10 is agreeing to start the quest. So when we have like their little journal entry, there's some scripting to officially start the quest. But yeah, the other main part, at least from what I understand, of how to build these quests and progress them is through dialogue. So this is like the first chain of dialogue. You can see this again, like accepting the quest, yes or no, is like the most basic part of it, but it's still a branch, and I hope to make more complex branches and trees throughout it. But we just have some back and forth, getting information from the main NPC, Danica Purist Ring, who is already like in the vanilla game. She is a priestess at the Temple of Kinnereth in Whiterun, and she sets you out to investigate one of the missing temple members, who is actually that bear that we saw earlier, Brother Suerta. So each of these dialogue boxes has some other like scary components, but also like it's very interesting to see how much work goes into creating a game of this magnitude with so many different quests, especially when you add in a lot of different choices. So we have the player responses or answers here, and then the NPC responses. So then we go to another section where you can assign, for example, if you didn't have this qualifier, excuse me, then any NPC in the world could say this line of dialogue, and we don't want that, so we assigned it to just Danica Pure Spring. We can assign a whole lot of different things that I am just learning about, because there's a lot, but you can also do things like assign emotions to their facial animations. Yeah. So doing that for all of these individual, each dialogue box with their own conditions and whatnot. But eventually you do that, and then in this case, this, if I can navigate to it, this S in brackets is there's a special condition applied to this last one where the player accepts the quest, and that's what triggers in-game what that quest beginning looks like. Alright, so we are back here in-game. We are in the Temple of Kinnereth in Whiterun, which is where our quest line begins. Unfortunately, the main thing that I was working on shortly before recording this video was integrating all of the aliases and internal references that the creation kit uses to link all the quest elements together, and you actually get like a progressing quest. So I had the dialogue with this NPC working, and then when I added in some of the more quest elements, that broke. So still in the process of figuring that out, but I can use some commands to force my way through some things. So basically, like I said, I love it when there are different, just like variations, even if they're minor. So the variation I have kind of tried to create here was that you have already done this, the player has already done this quest for this NPC, that's part of the vanilla game and everything, and they eventually just randomly get a letter to come see them again. So you do. So this is where the dialogue did happen, and it no longer does. But like I pointed out in the creation kit at the end, it will trigger you to start the quest. So I can force that, like we said, index 10. And then we get the good old new tracks and the in-game info, and it should pop up in our journal here. Another thing that's broken is the location reference apparently works very differently than other kinds of references. So for this first stage of the quest, I want you to go to an area to look around for our missing friend, Brother Suerta. So still trying to figure that out, but we can pretend, because we do know where we're going. We can go to the exterior cell. This is just a wilderness cell in the middle of Tamriel. The only thing that I added was this little area, which is our portal to the Bloodborne Den. Technically, I also deleted some saber cats because I'm like level 4 with this character and they kept killing me. But other than that, the world is unchanged. We're around here in the map, which is mentioned kind of in the dialogue, which is in the design brief that I'm also uploading. But thankfully we do have things like discovering a location, like that's an event that is triggered, and this being classified as a campsite and being fast traveled to. Those are all things that I implemented in. And we also set up this portal, so this is basically going to teleport us into our den. And here we are. So there's a lot to still do, but I think I'm making decent progress for the beginning of this whole process. I like being able to bounce between level design if I'm feeling in a building mood, or technical. If I'm feeling more technical, I can go into the quest design stuff. There's a lot of it that's kind of, some of it's like melting my brain. A lot of the quest design stuff is melting my brain, but it's also like really cool to see how this game was, like, in the nitty gritty of how this game was created. Especially on, you know, this is just me making one quest line. To think of like the scale they did this on is pretty crazy. So yeah, thank you so much for listening and watching. I know it's a little long, but I hope you enjoyed my Skyrim bear simulator. Thanks so much.